That's
Hi
right.
there. This is Jean Roman with For Dragonflies and Me. Thanks so much for joining me at this week's podcast. As always, I'm super excited to be here sharing gardening, cooking, organizational tips and tricks, chatting about healthy lifestyles, and of course, having conversations with incredible entrepreneurs. Well, if you are a regular listener, you know I love to share the backstory on how I am acquainted with my podcast guests. And of course, today's not going to be any different. So, as many of you know, I try to attend at least one, preferably two, networking events per month. This helps me grow both my network and meet interesting and inspiring entrepreneurs, which can potentially lead into a podcast guest. And one of these networking events takes place via Zoom once a month and consists of a group of female business owners, and it's called Connections. And if anybody's interested in that, please message me and I can definitely get you the information. Great group of gals. So this group, the goal of the meeting that this group has is to meet new people, to share contacts, and hopefully grow their business. It is both a networking opportunity and a way to share your potential leads. So, on there, I'm asking people, for podcast requests as well as looking for possible opportunities to do speaking engagements. So, today's guest approached me and was interested in chatting about her coaching business. I, of course, was happy to do so. And after our initial chat, we definitely clicked. And here we are today. So please now, all my Dragonfly followers, help me welcome Paula Lesso, divorce coach and owner of Personal Journey Coaching for Life. Paula, welcome. I'm super excited to have you here today to chat about your coaching services through Personal Journey Coaching for Life and how it all started for you.
Well, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. So kind of what happened is, being a divorce coach, of course, I've been married. But after 18 years of being comfortably married to my high school sweetheart, there was a point at which I was like, so where's the passion? Where did it go? When did it go? I felt like there was used to be passion in our marriage. And it was like we were living like roommates, right?
Mm,
And at that point, something's not right. So I sought out counseling and how to get the passion back. And
yeah.
I remember sitting in the chair. I mean, I can be there today and say, I'm here because I want to get the passion back in my marriage. And my counselor and I, years later, kind of laugh about it because, I'm sitting there. It's like, okay, yeah, let's just do that. Um, I did not want the D word to be part of my vocabulary. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, how do I fix it? And I,
Mhm.
I think women, we naturally think we have to fix this, right?
Mhm.
But unfortunately, my husband had figured out how to solve his problem. I guess he didn't feel it anymore. So he chose another route. But counseling became a personal journey
Aw.
to that, right? To
Mhm.
find comfort and a new start to living my best life. I mean,
Aw.
because I look back now, it was like, whoa, that was the beginning, right?
Mhm.
So these days, my story is not unique, but how I overcame the hurt and the blame and reclaiming myself is.
Mhm.
But see, I wanted to be a good wife because that was the vow, right? Be
Yeah.
a good wife but slowly over time, I morphed into what he wanted and what he liked. And it's over time, so you don't notice. Or I didn't notice, but a lot of
Yeah.
people, if you just don't notice, right? So many women, I think we do this. Like we put their lives on hold because for the betterment of the family unit, right?
Mhm.
And I know that I gave up stuff and I let things go. And I'm sure other women do too,
Mhm.
especially with if you have kids
Mhm.
and focus on them. So it's what their life is, right? And not your life. And maybe you and your husband's life, right? It's like we have to keep that relationship going too. Because otherwise, once the kids leave, it's like, and who are you?
Yeah,
Right.
your identity sometimes for a lot of women, especially, women our age, and I'll be 54 this summer, and so probably more so a little bit more towards our mom's age, but keeping that relationship together, that was our identity, being the wife and the
Yeah.
mother. And it's so different in today's society, which I'm thankful for. Women are not, you know assign their identity from their husband and their children. We have our own identities now, but yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, that's the thing. And then when the relationship ends, it's like we're just left without having a partner, without, sometimes knowing who we are,
Hmm.
because like you said, we let that relationship take over who we are,
Hmm.
right? And that's what we focused on, so we aren't living for ourselves. So by telling my story, it's inspired, many women asking me how I did it. And, and that's basically how personal journey coaching started. Because those are actually my initials, PJ, Paula
Okay.
Jean. But PJ, and I have friends that call me PJ. It's like, okay, I want that to be part of like my business name.
That's
And all of a
awesome.
sudden, and I'm looking, reading these words, all of a sudden it's like personal journey. We are all on a personal journey, whether we're going through divorce, anything we're going through, we're on that personal journey.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
And
that's
and
what it's
each
about.
individual's journey is different. It's like during our initial conversation, our first Zoom call, after we decided, like, yeah, let's go for this, we were both able to share, a little bit more personal details about both of our experiences. And where your situation was a sadness, and a deep loss, for me it was like, oh, this weight lifted off my shoulders, and it was one of the best things I ever did for myself.
Yes.
And that's okay. Each one of us, like I said, each one of us, no matter what it is, who we are, we all have our own personal journey, our own story to tell.
Mhm.
And for me, my ex-husband and we split up in 14, divorced in 15. We had 6 children during that marriage. We were married for 22, together for 25. So half of our lives literally were with each
Mhm.
other, and the majority of
Mhm.
our adult life. And the hardest thing for us, well, for me, leaving was, and I didn't want to be a single mom. I didn't want to, have that D word be a part of my kids' life, which is why and I know so many women stay in unhappy marriages for their kids. But my older kids have since said, you guys are both so much happier now, because all we did was fight. It was
Oh,
like, yeah, it's like, and it's like, why are you fighting just to fight? You're literally, I feel so guilty sometimes, because I feel like for my older kids, all I did was teach them how to survive in a toxic relationship. And now, coming
mm.
out of that. And thankfully, my kids are doing great. I mean, it is what it is. Life happens. Each one of them has their own personal story to tell with the divorce as well. But, I would love for you to share a bit more about your personal, your experience, if
Yeah.
you're good with that, with my listeners, so that, somebody's out there, they can relate, right? And you're going to touch somebody's heart with that.
Well, and like you said, kids are so smart. They're so
Mhm.
aware. It's like I had, we didn't have kids, um, but I've heard friends of mine say that when they tell their kids, we're going to get a divorce, it's like, it's about time, mom. They've they've known, they've sensed it, they hear it, they just know, they can't
They're
really
waiting
come
for
up
this
and
bomb
say,
to drop.
yeah, right. Yeah. And they're okay with it. But then again, you've got, kids that it's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you know. So we didn't have to deal with that, but still, it doesn't matter, because divorce, I mean, it's affects so many people. I say it's a ripple effect. You've got your friends and your family, and how that affects them. So but yeah, it ended up being the best thing I ever did for myself too.
Hmm.
But only after I worked with a counselor and really did the hard work on myself. Because if I hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have been able to get where I'm at now, or
Hmm.
even during that time. Um, so because we really realized I was grieving the loss of my marriage. Um, so when we think about it, it was like, oh, okay, that's what I'm really grieving. But So here I am working on getting the passion back into my marriage, but unknowing that my husband had found passion, or he thought passion, outside of our marriage.
Yeah.
But once that came to light, I was like, I'm not going to be a marriage of one. Do not stick around. Do not,
Mhm.
no, it doesn't matter. Right.
Mhm.
I've had friends that, how many times has the guy cheated on them? I mean, it's unfortunate, and they stay and they stay. And then eventually it's like, just can't do it anymore,
Yeah.
and you so want them, you want to say, just get out,
Mhm.
but everybody has to do it in their own timing. Right.
Yeah.
But it was hard facing, because we have this ideal life. Well, my ideal life was falling apart. And that was a huge struggle. Yeah, I wanted kids. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I worked until, I didn't have a career. I wasn't a career person, and I was going to work until, I became pregnant. We had kids.
Mhm.
Just never happened. Went through infertility and all that.
Mhm.
It isn't what broke up the marriage.
Mhm.
Um, it
And in
was
some
just a,
ways, Paula, you're lucky because then you had that one less element to deal with. I mean,
yes,
there's pros
yeah,
and cons because if you had your kids, well, then you had your kids, but you don't.
right. No, I didn't have that lasting connection with him.
Mhm.
God had another plan for me, which was
Mhm.
fine. And that was great. But I still had to fight tooth and nail for everything I got. And overall, I still consider this a gift. But I tell women, because I hear that, well, it's not me. He said it's him. And right, we've heard these stories before. And,
Yeah.
don't want the divorce. And I really don't want anything. It's like, okay, here's the thing. Yes, you do. You aren't going to like now have this grandiose life. That's not the idea. You're needing to maintain what you have and not be out on the street. So yes, you do need to fight for your your right of things, right?
Yep.
And it's okay if you don't. And I told this one woman, I said, okay, so maybe you don't want the money, although she needs the money, but
Mhm.
she don't want the money. It's like, okay, have it automatically deposit in another account
Yeah.
that you don't worry about it, you don't look at it, you don't think about it. It just happens.
Mhm.
And then eventually when you need it, because where they're at right now is in their head. It's the emotions.
Mhm.
You don't want the split up, right? You don't want the breakup. You don't want anything to happen. So you're in the emotion. And I help them take those emotions, because I say the mind is a terrible place to be, because it does have all the stories and the drama and everything you're thinking. So I'm there to, I'm right there with you, guiding you along the way with getting through that emotional struggle, all of that, so that you have clarity when you're working with your lawyer and your financial planner, whoever it is that
Oh
or your
yeah.
mediator, right? Because I've had this financial planner. She said, I can't deal with the emotions. I don't know how to handle it. I don't know how to deal with it. And she said, yes, you can help them get that clarity. So when they're with me, then, we go through what we need to go through.
Mhm.
These people are paid by the hour. So you don't need to be, taking up an hour worth of all that emotion, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Get what you
So,
need done and skip the
right,
drama.
right. Yeah. For me, so, I consider it a gift. And for me, I didn't realize this until later on. But what I started doing for me is what came naturally, and that was moving. Because I've always been kind of active, but while counseling was helping me move through that emotional stuff and the mental stickiness, like I say, we're up there, you know, everything's going up around in there. I got into moving my body more seriously, and I even started running.
Oh,
And so now I have like a half marathon and a triathlon under my belt now, which is
that's awesome.
quite an accomplishment. I mean, it's pretty cool. So it's I help women move from the mind into the heart and what is truly so. It's like what so is, we're going through divorce, what so, and then get into the movement maybe of the body. Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's just being in nature,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's meditating, but it's what's natural. Because I'm sure you know, if you're kind of stuck, and sometimes I've had to talk myself into like, okay, you need to change your energy, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Something's going on. I will get up and walk, or just get up and turn around and sit back. And it's like the energy changes, and it's awesome.
That is, and for different people, for everybody, there's something different, right? Like for me, it's gardening or cooking or writing. Those are my get out of the reality things and get me into a different moment, into a different
Yeah.
mindset, a different happy space. And,
Yeah.
when some people, I'm sure, their identity is that marriage, their children, their family, trying to find that when you lose it can be challenging. And, that's where I think, where you can really help people, navigate themselves to, okay, but what do you like? But what do you enjoy?
Mhm.
Well, I love, always taking my kids to their sports, or I loved watching my son play. No, no, no. What do you like to do? Right. And so, again, my divorce was healing for me. I mean, not to say that it was easy by any means. We're very amicable now. We're both remarried. We're both happy. And, our kids are great. We both have great relationships with our children. He's a great dad. Everything is amicable, and which is the way, not everybody can say that. So I feel very fortunate with that. But, it was for me a mountain lifted off my shoulders. I was so unhappy for so long and stayed for my kids, like so many moms do. And so your experience was altogether different. I would love for you to share with my listeners how that event specifically evolved into your coaching business.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And I love what you said. Even the cooking, even that's a movement. That's
Yes.
moving the body. That's doing things. That's, like you said, what is it to you? And it's going to be asking that question sometimes over and over again. All right, what else? What else? And that's the thing. I'm that third party objective person.
Mhm.
Friends and family can be great, but they know all the ins and outs, right? They
Yeah.
know all the stuff.
They know all the skeletons in the closet, at least some of them.
Oh yeah. And then well, I never liked them anyways. I mean, right? You get like, so, I'm that third party objective person. I don't have a skin in the game. So I can be here looking from the outside, asking those questions, and ask it maybe in a different way. But then before you know it, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
So one of the things is that when the marriage fails, especially with mine, it's become known that your husband is cheated. It's about feeling shamed and betrayed. And especially with my family too, it's like, whoa, get blindsided and all that, right? And there is a time, and I know I had this, I had my pity parties, but I also wanted to like curl up on the couch, not deal with it, and have that, container of Haagen-Dazs or whatever, ice cream or whatever you want to have, right? The comfort food, and then
Yep.
just sit and watch Hallmark movies or Lifetime movies, whatever, and just not deal with it, because it's like, this isn't happening, right? You need to face it, right? So yeah, counseling did give me the tools to get through it though. But a friend came and asked me, talk to me about her marriage being in shambles. And when I told her my story and like what I learned, it became much easier to talk about,
Mhm.
easier than I anticipated. So I just started like, how can I use this more to help other women, sorry, feel alone? And it needed some tools to like guide them through their own personal journey
Mhm.
and get to love and joy. So, because that's the thing. You really want to get to where you're have self-love and joy. And I remember talking to my dad, and I came to see him when I knew my husband and I were separating. And I was telling him what was going on. And he looked at me and he said, Paula Jean, what do you want? And I looked at him, I said, I just want to be happy. It's like that came out of the heart. Because I
Yeah.
say it came out of nowhere, but really that came from the heart. I realize that when I speak of things like that, it's like, okay, that came from the heart because it just came out. I mean, I didn't even hesitate. It was like I
Mm-hmm.
saw it. And through the counseling and the work that I did, like I said, really working hard, there was a day when and I see this happening right now. I was closing my closet door, and it had the mirror on it.
Mm-hmm.
I could look myself in the eyes and I said, I'm happy.
Aw.
Yeah. And then I think a few days later, we went to lunch and I said, do you remember when you asked me this question? I don't know that he did really, but I told him. And I said, you know what? I'm happy. Now it was such a release, such a light feeling. It was like, wow, right? But before that, well, I was still trying to figure things out and how to accomplish helping other women. I
Mm-hmm.
attended a 3-day intensive workshop, and it was called Falling Awake to Your Dreams. It was
Oh,
really
that's
cool.
interesting. I like that title.
Yeah, yeah, falling awake to your dreams. David Ellis is a guy that created it, but on the last day, they were talking about being a life coach. And all of a sudden it was like, whoa, like, ah, fireworks going off. It was like,
You got excited about something for you.
yes,
Yes,
because you know, I thought I had to go back to school, get my degree. I mean, literally,
I did that. Yeah.
yeah, see, but that was weighing heavy on me. Like,
Hmm.
I have to go back to school. I mean,
I love
mentally and
school.
physically, right? So mentally and physically, I'm thinking, do I have to go back to school for work? Do I have to do? And all of a sudden, it was like, I mean, I could feel my body just like get lighter. It was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. And I have learned, and I don't know if other people do this, but when I go, that's what I want to do, again, it comes from the heart. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, it's like, no questions asked. That's just it. So realizing that coaching was the missing piece of the puzzle. And that's exactly, how I can help women
Hmm.
to find themselves that are in similar situations. And, like I was in my marriage, right? So this way I can pass along what I learned to help them navigate those pitfalls,
Hmm.
because it's those ups and downs. And it's like, we want to go like this rather, because you have those highs and
Oh
lows,
yeah.
and it's like, okay, let's get to where we're away. It's the highs aren't as high because yeah, the highs are great, but boom, you fall, right? Because then you have that day or you see them or a song, something comes up and it reminds you of all that stuff. It's like,
Hmm.
so you're in that, right? So we want to get it so it's, a little smoother in the waves, right? So I went and got my coaching certification. And then after I started working with my clients and noticing that there were certain stories and concepts that I told over and over, I ended up writing a book, which I
Yay.
never thought I would. That concept was never in my head, write a book. But I wrote a book, and it's What Are You Waiting For? Today's the best day to start living.
Well, show it to everybody. There it is. Look at you, Paula.
Yeah, I really love it. It's really cool. But that's how, that my story, like, from here to here, there's the crap you go through
Hmm.
and how do you get above it. And it's having the right people in place
Hmm.
that to help you. And that's it. And get the help. Don't and if it's marriage counseling that you want to try, I mean, my counselor suggested it and we went for it, but I found out it was like he thought we were going separate ways. And it was
Hmm.
like, oh, really? Okay. And then finding out that he'd had the affair, and it was like, okay,
Hmm.
that's it. We're done. I don't
Yeah.
I don't have one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And it's like, I did end up going back to school. For me, I was like, I was trying to, I needed to get a career. I needed a job. I had two little boys that I was, taking care of.
Mhm.
And so I went back to school full time and I got my associate's degree in business management. And then I finished my bachelor's degree doing an accelerated program. So I did a 2-year program in 1 year, taking care of two little boys and working 4 part-time jobs.
Mm.
And, during that time, my then fiance was killed in an auto accident a couple months before our wedding and before I graduated and with my bachelor's. And so, those personal journeys and what do you take with them? And, that kind of is what I always talk about, stumbling blocks and stepping stones and what we do with them. And I am
Mhm.
a firm believer of taking a stumbling block, a potential stumbling block, and instead of using it, as, to go wallow in a corner and say, poor me, and I'm not saying that there's not a time to have your own mourning, but you can't just let your whole life fall apart because something bad happened. Bad things happen every day. And so
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer of using that potential stumbling block and using it as a stepping stone and to grow and develop and to become a better me or a better you. And Paula, that's exactly what you did. You took a deep hurt and turned it into something beautiful to share and help others. So, I mean, what humility, what genuine heartfelt love that you took that pain and said, you know what, I learned something from this pain, so there's your stepping stone, and I'm going to now help other women to use it as a stepping stone. And honestly, that's so admirable and selfless. And I think this is the quality that makes what you offer your clients special and unique. So I would love for you to share a little bit with my listeners, what other
Mhm.
type of coaching, because you don't just help with grief or divorce coaching, you do a few other things. So share that stuff too.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that question. I love it. But I want to make sure, like you said, every step, the stepping stone, whatever in the process, like women have the support as well as the tools and resources, right? Whatever stage they're in. And this is the thing, because there's other stages, and
Mm-hmm.
there's, do we stay or go? Like
Mm-hmm.
you were like, oh, with the kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, um, that was your reason for doing a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was surviving. So because it was just me, I didn't have the kids, but yet I still had to survive and show. And it is interesting to show family and actually friends how strong I could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was part of it too, showing
Yeah.
them. But it's a deciding to stay or go. And sometimes if you're just unhappy and you're thinking divorce is the only way out, not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you're unhappy, they're probably unhappy. So let's talk about that. And there's some things to work out, and it could be a stay, and it
Mm-hmm.
could be a good stay. But if not, then okay, then it's a go. All right. To, and from there to um being with you through the throes of divorce and either after life after divorce, because there is life after divorce, and because you
Yes, there
survived
is.
it, right? Yes, there's life after divorce and all that messy stuff in between, right? There's all that stuff you got to figure out, you got to handle. But it's easy to lose yourself in the process when you go it alone, because you think you got to handle, but there's all that stuff that you're thinking about and you don't see maybe an easier way, right? So, but my aim is there when the healing is needed, and all the way through, because it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. This is where I want them to get to, is this is the best thing that's ever happened to me stage, just like how you, Jean, got to, right? And you felt
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. It's like, oh my gosh, if I had only known this is how good it was going to feel afterward, I'd have done this much sooner. But we just don't think that we
There's so
should.
many fears too. It's like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to make it?
Right.
What happens? And
Right.
then, for me, it was like, oh, you're going to end up living in an alley. You're going to end up crawling back in 6 months. And so, all these
Yeah.
negativities and
Right.
all these fears and things, that's another battle during all of it.
Yeah. And even after that, you're going, okay, life after divorce. And that will include eventually, because yes, it does take time to get through that. Oh, I don't want to be with anybody, and it's, oh, I would never want to marry again. And, there's all because you're still hurt. It's
Yeah.
still wrong. And it hurts. And you're like, oh no, nobody's ever going to want me. I'm divorced and with kids. It's like, that's not true.
Not at all.
No, no, but because we're likely to bring the same baggage into a new relationship or
Mhm.
think there's only a life of celibacy. But see, we help you through that piece as well so that you're not carrying that same baggage. Because once you're divorced, it's like, okay, what's next? And I remember talking to my counselor, I don't want to be doing the same thing in that next relationship.
Yeah.
What's gonna, moving forward. So that's what makes my coaching different, is bringing that movement aspect into our work of all that. And it's funny, but because like I said, during my divorce, I naturally gravitated to the exercise and activities because I'd always been active. And even if you haven't been active, it doesn't matter. There's other things, like you said. What do you like to do? Even if it's like, you know what, I just want to go take a nice hot bath.
Or read. Take a
Read.
walk.
Give yourself permission. It's
Yeah.
about giving, and I don't think we do that enough. We
Mhm.
just think, oh no, we got to get this done and this done and this done. Take time for yourself. It's self-care.
Mhm.
But I got it. This is interesting. I've found this. I'm going to read this so I get it.
Okay.
But there's a scientific reason why I felt good. All right. So studies show that when you are transitioning through difficult situations, resolutions, clarity, and balance come more quickly when you engage your mind, heart, and body together at the same time. Okay. Now, Tony Robbins, if you know Tony Robbins, he says it best. Motion creates emotion. Changing your physiology means changing your mental state and breaking your negative patterns and getting unstuck. And that's, yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, not funny, but you think a lot of times, like whether it's just a boyfriend girlfriend relationship or whatever type of relationship, marriage, dating, whatever it may be, how many times do people end up, I'm going back to the gym, you get in shape, and it's like, I always joke around because you're a very petite lady. I am not. I'm curvy, but my husband likes that, so we're good. But it's like, fat and happy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's like, and that's not a good thing. I'm not encouraging that, to let yourself go or anything. But, you do get more relaxed. When you're happy,
Yeah.
you get more relaxed. And it's like Dave and I, we love to go on walks. We take our little pug Frank, and we go for walks. And he's a runner. But, I was divorced and then I met another man. And like I said, he was killed in an auto accident. Well, my husband Dave's wife, deceased wife, passed away from cancer. And we came together and from both those griefs, and we met online, an online dating site, and to this day we both say, and not disrespecting either of our relationships, but Dave said that he had this dream after we met, that he knew it was him and I, but it was in the beginning of time and when the universes were being created and we were moving to one another, and then all of a sudden we turned away from each other and we went the other direction. And so then I know, goosebumps, right? And I mean, this is him telling me this when we first started dating. I'm like, oh my gosh. And we just like clicked. And, like I said, no disrespect to his deceased wife, no disrespect to my deceased fiance. But I really believe the universe allows us to make our own decisions. And we all come to crossroads in our life. And we're either going to go left, right, or straight. Sometimes backwards. That's never really a good option, but sometimes you do. And at that moment in his dream, when we separated, but the end of the dream was where we both kind of like went around and then we found each other back. And so I know, right? And again, absolutely no disrespect to either of our past relationships, but he said, he goes, I know that we were created for one another because we have so many things in common. We are, and not to say we don't have our little ups and downs, everybody does. I mean, nothing's perfect, but one thing I can say about Dave is he genuinely knows how to love me the way I need to be loved. And I've never had that. And my ex-husband genuinely loved me. I will say that. I was the one that was unhappy. We would still be together if I would not have wanted the divorce. And the man that passed away, we had a good relationship, but, and I've had other relationships, but Dave and I, it's just this like mesh. And he puts up with a lot with me because I'm crazy. I got some crazy stuff going on. But, like I said, he knows how to love me through it. And it's like, because, and I was talking to this one other, I was reading this article, it was actually through Lisa Carmichael. She's one of my podcast guests too. And she sent me this article that she wrote, and it talked about how we create our own scenarios. And it was like, I used to always say, oh, I'm quick tempered, because I always was. But it's like, I am creating this, and a shame on me, I cannot remember the exact terminology in her article, but it was about how if you tell yourself something enough, your brain begins to activate and believe it and behave it. So from that article, I told Dave, I said, you know what? I am no longer having a quick temper. I have a reserved temper, and things are not going to irritate me or aggravate me or anything. And I am going to be more relaxed about things. And I tell myself that. And as soon as I feel myself getting a certain kind of way, I tell myself that, no, I'm not quick tempered anymore. And over the last 2 months, it has subsided. I'm not as quick tempered. I know. So I firmly believe that we are what we think, just like we are what we eat. So if we are like, oh, I have the worst job, I'm so unhappy, life is so unfair, you know what, baby? It's going to be.
That's
But
right.
it's that stumbling block and stepping stone, right? If you constantly say, you know what? And I've repeated this in so many of my podcasts. It's like I have a mantra that I say, well, 3 of them that I say every morning. I actually did it through a dieting thing. I glean this information, but I look in the mirror every morning and I tell myself, I am powerful. I am going to achieve everything I set out to do. I am going to be successful. Period. There's no other options. And
Nice.
that's life. I mean, yes, am I going to have some days where it's like, crap, that didn't go the way I wanted? Sure. But you know what? Well, why didn't it go? Let's fix it. Let's make it happen. And that's what we need to believe, whether it's in a relationship, it's a job, it's a friendship. And so in this type of situation, but Paula, you again have a unique way to deal with people and to help them. And I would love for you now that people are super excited to share with my listeners how they can connect with you.
Well, they can connect with me through LinkedIn, and I'll have to send you the link.
That's fine. Yep. I'll have everything.
Okay.
Yeah. Dragonfly listeners, no worries if you miss anything here. I'll have all the links to how you to reach out to Paula in the blog post, in the podcast, the YouTube, and my social media. So fire away, Paula.
And at paulalesso.com. And then what I'd like to do is give your listeners a free gift.
Okay.
And it would be 2 chapters from my book of What Are You Waiting For? Today's the best day to start living. Every day is the best day to start living, right? But it'll be a realistic view on how to traverse through the emotion of divorce and discover life on the other side,
Awesome.
And
awesome.
yeah, so I'd love to do that and have them reach out to me for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
Paula, I think we have one more thing to share with my listeners before we leave, right? We have an
Yes.
exciting project that we're going to be working on a little bit in more detail now that the podcast is going to be airing. But Paula and I are very excited to share that we will be partnering up beyond this podcast. We will be guest blogging for each other, and I will be discussing topics on how to cook for 1 or 2 and how to downsize, after a divorce or a split from a relationship, whatever that may be. And Paula will be sharing her knowledge on multiple things during my podcast as well. And so now Paula can elaborate a little bit.
Yes, because when Jean and I were in that
Connections.
thank you, networking group, and she was telling me about cooking or cookbook and everything, I'm like, I remember when, okay, so it's just my husband and I, but when it's your husband, you have a family, it's like I had to get down to cooking for one.
Mhm,
Now, my heritage is French and Italian.
mhm,
So I love to cook and I love to bake. But now I'm cooking for one. And it's like, oh my goodness, and then wanting to do it.
mhm,
And so you just kind of do some things, you throw some stuff together, but every once in a while, I love like creating a meal for myself and making myself important. Put out the nice dinnerware, put out, use it for yourself because you're worth it. Oh my gosh, you're
mhm.
so worth it,
Yes.
right? Because you were a person before this marriage. You were who you were being. And that's what we want is who are you being now?
Mhm.
And treat yourself in that manner. So, it's like I dine and cooking for one and loving it.
Yeah,
I think,
I love it. That
right?
is great, Paula. I know we just so everybody listening, Paula just shared that with me today. So we've been talking a little bit about it. But I love the title and I'm excited to help participate because Paula, I went from a family of 8 to me and 2 little boys. So I had older children, 4 older children, and 3 of them being, basically young men eating like grown men. And so it was very challenging. And so when we talked about that, I was super excited because I thought, you know what? Yeah, I did this. I can tell people, go from 8 to like 1.5, basically. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
then
I'm
it's like
super excited.
downsizing that and um it's just how you have to change,
Yeah.
how you have to go from this to
And
this.
you don't
I
think
mean,
about that.
no,
There's
no.
so
And
many things, like even just like, not just cooking, but even the cleaning, the laundry, just the whole. And if you weren't working and now you got to work, it's like it's balancing that. And so that's what I'm excited about, to kind of like to guest blog together to where you can help people, share some information on how to overcome those hurdles and where I can help your clients to be able to learn how to downsize in cooking and maybe do some organization and purging. And so,
oh,
yeah, I think it's going to be a great collaboration.
oh yeah, because you got to purge because you got to get his stuff out of there and make sure he takes that stuff. But then if there's leftover stuff, and then the other thing too, like Jean, it's like letting go of
Mhm.
some of the stuff that you had together,
Yeah.
and getting that energy out.
Yes. Because it is energy and
It
energy
is.
leaches and it stays. You have to purge that.
Hey, I even did the sage thing
Oh, yeah.
throughout the
I was
house.
just thinking that. I was going to say that. Oh, yeah. Sage it. Put salt in each of the 4 corners underneath the bed. Cleanse, girls. Cleanse.
Yeah, even in the drawers, like his dresser drawer, like, because I still had, it was like the set, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to, oh my gosh, what are those things that even if you stayed in the house and he
Hmm.
left, you
Hmm.
gotta clean it, you gotta get that energy out,
Yeah.
and then they're yours.
Yep. Yep. I agree. Well, I'm super excited, Paula. And so
Thank
I
you.
guess we're going to wrap this up and call her a great episode and just the beginning of a great new relationship. So, Dragonfly friends, thank you so much for joining Paula and I today. We're excited to come back together and, work together and share our knowledge and with all of you. Paula, thank you so much for joining me here today. It has been a pleasure, and I'm excited for a continued working relationship with you and friendship
Yes,
because you're one of
thank
my
you.
gal pals now.
That's right. I've had a great time
Oh, me
from
too.
our first discussion to this discussion. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fun when you meet people and you just click. But friends, to see more about Paula and her personal journey coaching for life, you can obviously check all that out at my blog for dragonfliesandme.com. And you can also reach out to Paula at paulalesso.com. And again, all those links are going to be in my descriptions below. But I implore you to please subscribe so you don't miss a beat. Follow me at my blog, follow me at my podcast here, my YouTube channel, and my social media platforms. I put out different content, lots of great stuff on each of those platforms. And I just love to share with all of you. So, like I always say, friends, be sure to eat fresh, shop local, and have a happy day. Thanks again, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.